Let's be honest. Who doesn't want to be smarter? Learn faster, remember more, and just think with a little more clarity. But what if the key wasn't some kind of innate talent you're born with, but just a single learnable habit? Well, it turns out there is one, and it's something anyone, and I mean anyone, can master. So, what is this magic habit? When you really look at the top performers in any field, the innovators, the scientists, the creators, what's the one thing they all have in common? I'll tell you right now, it's not their IQ, it's not some special gift. It's a very specific, repeatable process they use to get smarter, day in and day out. And here it is. It's called deliberate learning. Now, this is the core idea we're going to break down today. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's an idea that can totally change how you build skills and actually keep the information you learn. Okay, so to really get what deliberate learning is, it actually helps to first look at its total opposite, which honestly is the way most of us were taught to learn. It's our default mode. You could call it passive learning. This right here shows you the huge difference between just consuming information and truly engaging with it. See, passive learning is all about watching, reading, highlighting stuff. It feels productive, doesn't it? But a lot of the time, that info just goes in one ear and right out the other. Deliberate learning, on the other hand, is active. It's about testing yourself, actually trying to apply the concepts, and, this is the big one, reflecting on your mistakes. That is where the real growth happens. Now, there's a fancy psychology term for the engine that drives this whole process. It's called metacognition. It sounds way more complicated than it is. All it means is thinking about your own thinking. It's just being aware of how you're learning while you're actually doing it. So, in practice, what does that look like? Well, it means you're basically in a constant conversation with yourself. Deliberate learners don't just swallow a fact whole. They challenge their own understanding. They ask questions like, okay, do I really get this? Or could I explain this to a 5-year-old? Or where does this fit in with everything else I know? This little habit is what turns flimsy, surface-level knowledge into deep, lasting expertise. So you see, it's not just about asking a few random questions. These questions are actually key steps in a repeatable, compounding cycle. A cycle that actively builds your intelligence. Let's break down what that cycle actually looks like. This learning cycle has 4 key parts. First, you learn something new. But then, and this is critical, you immediately pause to reflect. You question it, you summarize it in your own words. Next up, you apply it, even if it's just in a tiny way. And finally, you refine your understanding by getting feedback and fixing your mistakes. Every single time you go through this cycle, your knowledge gets deeper, and it just sticks. And this really hits the nail on the head. The main point here is that just rereading your notes or rewatching a tutorial over and over again, that's not very effective. That's just repetition. Real intelligence gets built in that active process of reflecting on what you learned and correcting where you went wrong. So if this is so powerful, why doesn't everybody do it? Well, because frankly, it's hard, it's uncomfortable. Facing what you don't know, testing yourself before you feel 100% ready, that's mentally tough. It's so much easier to just passively watch another video and feel productive, right? But that struggle, that's precisely where the learning is happening. But what if we could make that uncomfortable struggle just a little bit easier? This is where things get really, really exciting. Because there are new tools popping up that can help us embrace this whole process and make it accessible to, well, everyone. AI tools are becoming absolute game changers for deliberate learning. Think of them as a personalized tutor that's available 24/7. They can create what neuroscientists call a closed learning loop, which is basically the perfect environment for your brain to forge new connections by giving you instant interactive feedback. So how does this AI-powered loop work in practice? Well, it starts out just like you'd expect. You learn a new concept, maybe from a lesson or an article. But right after, instead of you having to force yourself to reflect, the AI jumps in and challenges you on the spot. It'll quiz you on the material, forcing you to actively pull that information out of your brain, not just passively recognize it. And finally, the loop closes with immediate feedback. Whether you got the answer right or wrong, the AI can explain why, closing that gap in your understanding almost instantly. So you learn, you apply, and you get corrected, all in a matter of seconds. And there's real science to back this up. When you struggle to remember something and then you finally get it right, your brain releases a little bit of dopamine. It's like a chemical reward that says, hey, that was important. And that reward strengthens the neural pathway, literally wiring that new knowledge into your brain more securely. Pretty cool, huh?
but here's the best part. You don't need any fancy AI to get started. You can begin building this incredibly powerful habit today with a super simple framework.
Here it is, a simple 3-step plan. First, after you learn something new, force yourself to summarize it. Write down 3 key takeaways and 1 question you still have. Second, the next day, try to recall it from memory. Test yourself, don't just reread your notes. And finally, apply it. Find one tiny, real-world way to use the concept. This simple little routine puts that entire intelligence building cycle into action. So when you boil it all down, after everything we've talked about, what's the single most important mindset shift you should walk away with? It's this right here. Intelligence isn't fixed, it's trained. This is the simple, powerful truth most of us were never taught in school. Your intelligence isn't some static trait you were born with. It's a skill. It's a muscle. And just like any muscle, you can strengthen it with the right exercises. Ultimately, the difference between people who seem naturally smart and everyone else, it's usually not about having a superior brain. It's about having a superior process. They've simply mastered the habit of learning deliberately, day in and day out. They have a better system for getting and keeping knowledge. And so, to wrap this up, let's actually apply the core lesson of this whole explainer to the explainer itself. Don't just click away and move on to the next thing. Take 30 seconds. Just pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what did you actually learn right now?